is presented
Full day outside, aren't we? Having gorgeous Easter weather. Great stuff. Okay, it'll be terribly easy for me to sit here this morning and just give a blanket bag to the Manly side, and they deserve it, let's face it. But to do that would be to denigrate and lower the calibre of the magnificent performance put up by Penrith. I don't propose to do that. We'll have a little bit to say about the Manly side on Controversy Corner during Sports World later on, but sufficient for this session here, this replay session, to talk and eulogise about a side that suddenly came of age under their coach, Len Stacker. Now, let's have a look at some of the highlights of this game. You're going to see 6 incredibly good tries by the Penrith side, only a couple to Manly during the period. I think we may have just lost picture temporarily, but I'll keep talking. You're going to see some really quality stuff, tries that have not been, I've seen the equal of in recent times. We may have missed the first try there. I think perhaps we did finish with Fenton's try not being shown. Manly hit back fairly early with a good try. This was to come up to little Johnny Gibbs after a good sustained attacking play. And Johnny Gibbs really was the only player in the Manly side that came out with a reputation enhanced, but a whole heap of players in that Penrith side did. It was to be, I think, Len Stacker's finest moment. Now watch him get this on the half volley. That's a quality bit of football by little Gibbs. He tried everything. He did little kicks, he did dummies, every attacking skill he had at his disposal he employed yesterday, and it was all to no avail. But Penrith, quick hands, people running onto the ball, Dan, the fullback, injecting himself into the three-quarter line, surety of handling, the pace of certain players like this Steve Martin. That pass was definitely forward. The referee was quite right in his decision, but it indicates just how many times the defence were broken. They had, I think, 3 other tries disallowed. Now you'll see the sadness of a great player, Graham Eadie, and injured too, unable to get to Martin there, and allowed him in for the try, as indeed Eadie had done with the first try, Mr. Tackle. Now this was a bit sad too when Mark Willoughby makes a long break and Tom Mooney manages to get there but has not got the pace to go on with the job, and easily picked off by the Penrith cover defence. It could be there's just several players in this Manly side gone off the boil. In other words, they might have just slipped a little bit over the hill, as can happen with footballers very rapidly. In a social occasion I had with Len Stacker before the football season started, during the pre-season, he was very confident that this Penrith side would be a strong one this year, that they would get their act together, and it's been certainly drawn out by the great performance the team put up yesterday. I thought the entire side played well. I'd like to give a particular rap to Tim Sheens, their skipper, who's never been a fashionable player, one of the long service men with the club, who's never been a player that's been highly considered by spectators, but a very high work rate, a fellow that gets totally involved in the game. I'd also like to give a big rap to Royce Simmons, their hooker, who, although he was beaten by 1 scrum overall on the day, had every bit of power and strength that Manly could muster during the week was put into reasons of devising ways for them not to lose the scrums. They altered the pack around. They didn't pick Max Krilich, which to 99.9% of the Manly supporters has been one of the worst blunders the club has made in a long time. So Simmons did a marvellous job in containing Brown to only a 1 scrum advantage. I think it must be put down as very much a points loss, that decision, against the Manly coach, Ray Ritchie, and his selectors. Now you can see the battering of the line, the sustained pressure. This wasn't the Penrith side that we've come to know, the side that can't hold the ball. There's another try gone begging. I'm indicating these errors that Penrith made. Heaven knows there weren't many of them, but it indicates just how many tries they could have scored. Martin was probably the most incisive player on the field. He came up with 2 tries yesterday. He's the player that started out as a hooker and ended up being, as Fenton, in for one of his. Oh no, the referee on that occasion ruled that there was offside play. Brown kept trying, as indeed Randall did in defence. This little fellow excited the Manly fans on several occasions. Head down, head up, socks down. And a great tackle from McMahon, a good diving tackle to put him down, and that's what it needed. Sheens back inside. This man, Martin, again, And there's Dan in for what looked to be a simple try, but very well thought out, backing up on the inside. There's Sheens again, getting a quick pass away to McMahon, who was the wing three-quarter, backing up his captain. But when all the smoke and fury die down on this game, there's one man's name, and I've kept him to last, is going to be the one that they'll talk about when this game is talked about as a winning proposition for Penrith, and that's Mark Levy, their new centre from signed from the Parramatta club. Levy's general astuteness and generalship around the field were incredibly good. His kicking, tactically, and his kicking for goal, as you can see, was very good. He kicked 5 goals. But all in all, it was a marvellous display by Levy, and I thought he quite definitely was the man, apart from their coach Len Stacker, most responsible for the win. It was a fine performance. You need a general on the field. This club have never had a general. They've never had a man that can settle a player down and calm them down. They have now, Mark Levy. What a good performance. Let's hope I never hear of you taking another dive, Mark. That was the only part of your any recent utterances from you that sickened me a little bit. So congratulations on your win. Congratulations to the Penrith Club, a great performance. We're going to...
Okay. Let's have a look at the match with the full panel, and gentlemen, I'll ask you to tell me just where Manly's going wrong. The first try came after only 80 seconds of football, and we saw Platts make the big run down the middle, turn the ball to Fenton, and it was 5-0 with 1 minute 20 seconds of the match gone.
I think the mistake Manly have made is to underestimate the skill of these Penrith players. Warren Fenton has been a very good player for the last 2 or 3 years. Like many of the other Penrith youngsters, all they've needed is a couple of experienced players to help them along. Penrith have that now, and players like Steve Martin, who initiated this break, is a great footballer. There's one of the experienced players, Lou Platts, and there's Magoo, Warren Fenton, finishing it off, equally at home at lock or 5'8", but he's a very talented player, and some of the smarties at Penrith who criticise us when we signed these youngsters might now have second thoughts.
Now let's see the try from head on, and you'll see some of the pitiful Manly tackling. Frank?
There was only one man in cover defence there, and that was front row forward Willoughby. Look, they just leave the lot. Gartner and then Eadie.
Did Eadie have that injury before he went into the match?
No, he didn't. He had it. He injured
in the first minute.
The first minute of play, and they scored in the second. But
okay, we're coming back now at the 7-minute 40 mark, and we see Gibbs try. Gibbs runs around Gerard, comes back again, goes in for the try. Peter Peters.
Yeah, Gibbs was the only player I think that Manly had yesterday that could walk off that field with his head held high. The little fellow did more than his share of work. He's a great little player. He's back to his best. Ray Brown did some good lead-up work for this try and was backed up by Gerard, and this was the way they should have attacked Penrith up the middle of the rucks, but they forgot about that in the second half.
Penrith looked shaky every time Manly mounted an attack in the first half.
Yeah, but they just didn't mount enough. Manly yesterday, I think they gave up the ghost early in that second half, and I think probably a lot of their great internationals have reached the end of the road together.
Well, do you think it's one season too late for some of the big Manly names?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I'd like to know why Manly pack get pushed off the ball, Peter. It's amazing to me because they're mountain men. They're mountains of men, rather, but they were pushed off by the mountain men.
Now, at the 17.5-minute mark, Steve Martin's try. Look at this. Now, that made Gartner and Vaughton look very, very second-rate.
And Eadie's
he puts
injury.
it down. And Eadie couldn't get across there because of his injury. That was obvious from the hobble. Here's the replay.
Eadie should have come off earlier, I think, Case, when his ankle was obviously as bad as it was, when he couldn't get to that first tackler. He should have come off and been replaced, but he bravely stayed on, perhaps, but it turned out to be a foolish move, and he doesn't quite get to the block forward.
He would have put him right over near that Smith's.
Well, you can see the lack of defence in the head-on shot here. Look at this.
But Vaughton and Gartner must be wondering what's going on. They just stand there and watch Martin go straight through the middle.
Yeah.
It was typical of the Manly tackling performance.
The one blemish is Martin carrying the ball in the wrong hand.
Yeah, he's a good player, this kid. He's a great player. He scored 40 tries now.
But who puts a hand... Well, look at the way he put it down too. OK, at the 35.5-minute mark, Gerard and Brown send Broadhurst in for the try. And at this stage, it did look as though Manly was going to go on with it.
Yeah, well, this Manly was still in the game, and I thought they were lucky at this stage to lead by 10 points to 8. They certainly weren't the better side. Penrith, I think, outplayed them in all departments. Broadhurst, too, had a fair game yesterday. He backed up and ran strongly.
Yes, but Pete, in the second half, the same as last week against Eastern Suburbs, they just collapsed in a heap.
Oh, I agree, Frank. I think they're a team of plasticine men at present.
Well, what's the problem? Or was it just, as we've said earlier, they're a year too old?
Well, they got the ball yesterday, so they can't blame Ray Brown for that, and Brown was under a lot of pressure, but I do think that Max Phillips should have been in the side yesterday.
Sheens is the man who had a big game. He got knocked over there, but got the pass away to Martin, and Dan goes in for the try to make it 13-10, and this was the start of it. Now, that was a good bit of football from Sheens, and I don't think he's got enough credit out of Penrith's win yesterday.
Oh, and he captained that side well too, you know, even with the experienced Levy and Broman and Platts in the side, he was in control all the time, Sheens.
But it's Martin who gives that final pass, Case. That's a good bit of work too.
Yeah, and he steps off the other foot too. It's a beautiful bit of work.
Comes back to him.
But I agree with Case. Sheens has been around a long time at Penrith. He's played more games than anyone in the club, and he took a great deal of credit for yesterday's win. He had them in the right frame of mind.
At the 19-minute mark, Simmons, Sheens and McMahon team up for this try, and this was really the one that finished it, really, because after that there was no way Manly could get back in with a score at 18-10.
God, it was easy.
Sheens again. Shifty's been criticised in the years with Penrith for being too soft for a prop, but I don't think Manly would say that he's too soft.
I don't think any team would. He's a very well-respected player.
Well, after that, of course, we had Steve Martin's try and Cartwright's try, but that was when the game finished at 18-10, and there was no chance of getting out of it. Let's go now to the player of the match, and this is for Sax Altman, have been good enough to present us with a suit for the player of the match each round. And but before we make that award, let's go to the coaches in the dressing room to hear the excuses and the salutations. And now the coaches talk to Peter Peters.
He said to me this morning that this was one of the most important matches in the history of the Penrith club.
Yeah, I regard it as one of the most important because we'd gone all right, and it was sort of a situation where the players really have to go on and beat teams as they come, and they've got to think like winners, and we built up a bit of momentum. We looked all right, and well, I think today would have proved a lot to a lot of fellows individually. A lot of my players would have realised today that they can beat other teams, and well, I think it's a good springboard to go on for a bit more now.
You've come under a lot of criticism yourself for part of the game disappointed you today. The defence around the rucks?
No, I wasn't really. We started the first 5 minutes, we lost Edie. And from then it just went on and on and on, like with injuries. I'm not blaming that. I'm still saying that Penrith's the better side. But we were unsettled from that time on. We won the scrums today. But we've been penalised. Penalties in the second half were 6-1 or 6-0 or something. And we just can't. It seemed to me, I don't know whether it was with you, but they seem to be down in our half all day.
Yes, they were.
Losers. Well, he can cry, and I suppose Len Stacker's had enough crying for him to have a couple of good nights. Good on you, Len, and I know Ray will be in there again next week, but he's under a lot of pressure down at Manly now, because Manly does not stand losers. They certainly don't. After this commercial break, we'll wrap